Tragedy of Antony and Cleopatra is no prayer to love. It is no hymn to love. If anything, it is a critique of love in tragic form. It is a play that evokes the darkest dimensions of love. This is the thesis upon which I will be fastening my attention. We are now within the second part of the video series in which I lecture on The Tragedy of Antony and Cleopatra by William Shakespeare. My name is Joseph Suglia, Suglia. First is the geopolitical, and the geopolitical is the personal in this play. Or to put it another way, the amatory is the geopolitical, and the geopolitical is the amatory in this play. Amatory is a somewhat obscure word, which means relating to physical love. I'm trying to avoid the word romantic. In any event, the last war of the Roman Republic is the war with Alexandria. And this war is set in motion by personal conflict. Marcus Antonius, Mark Antony, represents the eastern territories of the Roman Empire. Cleopatra represents Egypt, and Octavia Caesar represents Rome proper. The war is incited by emotion. The war is incited by emotion in this play and in history as well. Antony is a negligent, neglectful, love-obsessed leader. He's an erotomaniacal leader, an erotomaniacal ruler. Shakespeare's play is suggesting to us that Antony is a ridiculously incompetent leader. He's ridiculously incompetent as a ruler. Why is he ridiculously incompetent as a political ruler? Because he's in love. One of Antony's closest minions, Enobarbus, says of Cleopatra, quote, "We cannot call her winds and waters, sighs and tears. They are greater storms and tempests than almanacs can report." Act 1, Scene 2. So when she weeps, it is a meteorological disaster, metaphorically speaking. I don't mean that literally, of course. Barbus doesn't mean that literally. The passions of the main characters have super geopolitical consequences. The emotions of the characters set in motion geohistorical events. So the play perceives war, particularly the war between Rome and Alexandria in 30 before the Christian era, through the speculum of two human beings who are erotically engrossed in each other. So the super geopolitical is the personal, and the personal is the super geopolitical. In the opening scene of this work, one of Marcus Antonius's followers, Philo, that's an important name, that's a significant resonant name, although it does appear in Plutarch, it appears in history, but his name is Philo. Philo is discussing his master's weakness for his Egyptian lover, Cleopatra, his indolence and his negligence. This is a very common technique in Shakespeare, by the way. Before showing us the main characters, he has secondary characters talk about the main characters. You see this in the tragedy of Timon of Athens, for example. So Philo says to his colleague, "You shall see in him, Mark Antony, the triple pillar of the world transformed into a strumpet's fool. Behold and see," end of quotation, Act 1, Scene 1. So Antony, what does this mean? Antony is one of the members of the triumvirate that runs the Roman Empire. The other triumvirs are Lepidus and Octavia Caesar, also known as Augustus. Octavius is not the legitimate son of Julius Caesar. He is Julius Caesar's great nephew. Now, Octavius's mother is Julius Caesar's niece, but he is Julius Caesar's heir, if that makes sense. Lepidus is an ineffectual buffoon who doesn't even understand when he's being made fun of. Now, this is the opening conflict of the play. Marcus Antonius, Mark Antony, is voluntarily marooned in Alexandria with his Egyptian lover, Cleopatra, while being married all the while to Fulvia. Mark Antony is summoned to defend the Roman Empire against the violent incursions of the army of Sextus Pompeius, the son of Pompey the Great, who was banished from the Roman Empire but took residence in Sicily. Now, Sextus Pompeius is invading Rome and even has a groundswell of support among legions of young Roman men. But the observation that I want to make is this: Mark Antony delays, postpones, defers coming to the aid of Octavius and Lepidus. Why? Because he's in love. Because he is in love, because he is in the thrall of Cleopatra. Mark Antony is so besotted by his lover Cleopatra that he allows Rome to be infiltrated by the army of Pompey the Younger, as I call him, Sextus Pompeius. Now, Mark Antony is taunted and jibed and goaded and manipulated and provoked, urged by Cleopatra. And he is so obsessed with her that he has been neglecting his official duties. He does not assist Lepidus or Octavius in their defense of Rome against the invasion of Sextus Pompeius. He ignores the messages that they send. He doesn't respond to their emails for days, and he allows Rome to burn and to fall, metaphorically speaking. So Cleopatra is like Kirke, if you know Homer, you know the Odyssey. Cleopatra is very much like Kirke. Yeah, marooning Odysseus on her island. And in this case, beguiling Antony and bewitching him into remaining with her in Alexandria. Now, as Antony himself puts it, quote, "Let Rome and Tiber melt." Tiber is a river, right? "Let Rome and Tiber melt, and the wide arch of the ranged empire fall. Here is my space." Now, when he says my space, he's not alluding to myspace.com, the now defunct social media, anti-social media website. No, here is my space, Alexandria. "Kingdoms are clay," Act 1, Scene 1. So, end of quotation, let the world burn, in other words. Let the world burn. I would rather stay here with Cleopatra. That's what he's saying. So according to Plutarch, which is probably Shakespeare's only primary source for this play, Antony and Cleopatra described their common life with the word amimetobion. Amimetobion. Amimetobion, which means the life beyond compare, the life incomparable. The problem is that it is a life, their common life, right? The life of Antony and Cleopatra together. It is a life that is shut off from all responsibility, particularly from Antony's sovereign obligations, his triumviral responsibilities. Because he is delaying his participation in the defense of Rome, his love obsession has geohistorical consequences. The fact that Mark Antony is neglectful and inadvertent and is obsessed with his Egyptian lover Cleopatra is world-altering. The subjective experiences of the main characters, their affectivity, their emotions, sway the course of the world. The play concerns the relationship between the all-englobing engrossments of love. That is, it concerns the destructive effects of love. Now, Shakespeare's play has a great deal to say about love. It is true, Shakespeare's play has a great deal to say about love. It has a great deal to say about the fascinations of love and the obsessiveness of the obsessive fascination, which is love, the destructive fixation upon the other human being, the one human being who is singularized and particularized, the one beloved, the inamorata, who becomes the single axis around which the world is oriented. And in this case, Antony's lover comes from the Orient. Now, Caesar Octavius doesn't like any of this. Not at all. He hates it. Octavius notices that Antony is ignoring his sovereign responsibilities and is instead lounging around in bed with Cleopatra. So Antony is charactered as a wastrel. He is charactered as a wanton who diverts himself with sport. Octavius says of Antony, he fishes, drinks, and wastes the lamps of night in revel. Act 1, Scene 4. He likens Antony to, quote, those boys who, being mature in knowledge, pawn their experience to their to their present pleasure, and so rebel to judgment. Act 1, Scene 4. In other words, Antony won't stop playing around, and this infuriates Octavius. Is he wrong? Octavius, we come to understand, is a much different human being than Mark Antony. Antony is forever enraptured with Cleopatra and forever lacerated by his emotions. It is said that he wept at the death of Julius Caesar and at the death of Brutus, even though Brutus was the architect of the assassination of Julius Caesar, as you might remember. Now, Octavius, again, Octavius is a different beast. He's a different animal. Octavius is raptureless by contrast. He is sober, he is moderate, he is abstemious. Octavius is reluctant to dance at the celebration of the armistice between the Second Triumvirate and the forces of Sextus Pompeius. And Octavius is 23. He's 23 years old. And how old is Mark Antony? Antony is around 43 years old. There's a 20-year transgenerational gap between Mark Antony and Octavius. And yet, Mark Antony is acting as if he were a little boy. And Octavius is acting like the adult. Anyway, Antony is wasting away, lying around like a layabout. He's wasting away at Margaritaville, lying around like a layabout, while Lepidus and Octavius, the other members of the triumvirate, defend the Roman Empire. So Antony apparently was not always a profligate, according to Octavius. There is a passage that suggests this. In the Battle of Mutina, which took place on the 21st of April in the year 43 before the Christian era, Antony and his forces retreated. They were famished, they were starving, and Antony resorted to drinking puddles of urine and eating bark from the trees. Octavius gives us this anecdote to demonstrate how much he admired Antony's former austerity. Like much of the play, this passage is inspired by Shakespeare's only historical source for this play, Plutarch, in the translation of Sir Thomas North. So Caesar Octavius apostrophizes the absent Antony. Let me read this passage for you. So I quote, this is from Act 1, Scene 4. Thou fought'st against famine, with patience more than savages could suffer. Thou didst drink the stale of horses and the gilded puddle which beasts would cough at. Thy palate then did deign the roughest berry on the rudest hedge. Yea, like the stag when snow the pasture sheets, the barks of trees thou browsed. End of quotation. The passage is beautifully disgusting. In Act 5, excuse me, in Scene 5 of Act 1, we are back in Alexandria again. This is not an Aristotelian play, violating as it does the unity of space. Now, for those of you who might not know, Aristotle believed that every play should have a unity of time, which means it should take place in one uninterrupted duration. It should have a unity of space, so it should take place in one place, and it should have a unity of plot. I agree with the third one. Not that I'm not a fanatic of plot. I'm not an air conditioner of plot either, but I always thought that it's better to have a simple story. Let's not say plot, simple story than it is to have a complicated story. Anyway. So this is not an Aristotelian play, violating as it does the unity of space. Now, the unity of space, again, means that a play will take place at a single location for the entirety of its duration. This is a rule that Aristotle mandates and that Shakespeare follows elsewhere in the Comedy of Errors. This is very much a disunified play. It is a sprawling, extravagant, opulent pantomime. One of the most striking things about the play is that it transfers us across the world. First, we are in Alexandria. Then we are shuttled over to Rome in Act 1, Scene 4. Now, in the 5th scene of the 1st act, we are back in Alexandria again. So the play is a bit like a teleportation machine, transposing us from one place to another, and a time machine, shuttling us from one time to another. We next see Cleopatra lounging on her divan like an odalisque. We next see Cleopatra lounging on her divan like an odalisque and asking her minion Charmian for a drink. Give me to drink Mandrakora, Act 1, Scene 5. Now, what is Mandrakora? It's mandrake juice, which I've never tried, but I'd love to. It's a kind of narcoticizing juice. It's a drug. And again, as I discussed in the first video of this series, love is related to narcosis in this play. Love is the drug. Love is the drug par excellence. That's one of the things that the play is suggesting. Anyway, so in the 2nd scene of the play, the servant girl Charmian gives us a chilling anticipation of how the play will end. Namely, tragically, Charmian says as she is getting her palm read, quote, I love long life better than figs. Act 1, Scene 2 again. Now, at the play's gruesome conclusion, at the grisly ending of this play, Cleopatra serves herself a dish of figs, garnished with a venomous asp. So, in Act 1, Scene 5, Cleopatra is writhing on her bed, dreamily thinking. Of whom is she thinking? Of Antony, of course. Quote, you think of him too much. Act 1, Scene 5, Charmian says. She is correct. Yes, Cleopatra does think of him too much, but how could she help it? It's not her decision. Thoughts just bubble up in our minds, right? But love is an obsessive fascination with the other human being, and that idea is suggested again and again by this text. So Cleopatra says, broad-fronted Caesar, when thou wast here above the ground, I was a morsel for a monarch. Act 1, Scene 5. So she's suggesting that she was like Skittles, Reese's Pieces. She was candy, Halloween candy. And above the ground means alive, right? So Cleopatra is probably alluding to the fact, well, Cleopatra is probably alluding to the legend, which has become a fact, in which she was bundled up in a thong, not that thong, like thong meaning belt, right? Bundled up in a mattress strapped by a leather belt, that kind of thong, and delivered to Julius Caesar as a morsel, as a dainty delicacy, as a Kit Kat bar, as a cupcake for his enjoyment, with her consent, with her consent. Now, at the time, Julius Caesar was the most powerful leader in the known world. Both Antony and Cleopatra make extreme statements. They make absolute statements. And I'm going to give you an example of this. So again, both Antony and Cleopatra make extreme, absolute statements. This is one of the ways in which both figures mirror each other, right? They're very similar. They both make extreme claims. Many of their statements are silly. They aren't particularly intelligent. Cleopatra vows to write a letter to Antony every day at the end of Act 1, Scene 5. Or as she says, quote, I'll unpeople Europe. No, I'm sorry. I'll unpeople Egypt, she says, Act 1, Scene 5. In other words, if Cleopatra doesn't have the time, doesn't have the opportunity to write Antony a letter every single day, she will subject the Egyptian people to genocide. She'll murder her own people. Both Antony, look, and I understand this is a curiously literal way of reading the passage, but essentially, yes, she is saying, if I don't have the opportunity to write to Antony, I will commit genocide against my own people. I'm sure she didn't mean it, but that's not the point that I'm trying to make. The point is, both Antony and Cleopatra are psychotically ridiculous, and their psychotic ridiculousness results in the death of countless people. That's a fact. Forget about the letter. That actually happened in history, as we'll see. So Cleopatra, again, hyperbolizes. This puts her at the furthest remove, at the antipode to the Roman Empire. Ancient Romans were known for their laconic speech. They were known for their moderation, for their sophrosity. Sophrosity is impossible to translate. That's a Greek word. It's an untranslatable Greek word that basically means temperance, moderateness, abstemiousness. Caesar Octavius is the antithesis of Cleopatra, right? Cleopatra writhes luxuriously upon her bed and makes extravagant statements about how Antony will receive a letter every day from her, or she will commit genocide against her own people. Now, Antony's gesture of profligate, extravagant generosity is known by historians as the donations of Alexandria. Quote, all the East shall call Cleopatra mistress. Act 1, Scene 5, right? This is what Antony writes in his correspondence to Cleopatra. To allay Cleopatra's anger, Antony orders the transference of all of the eastern territories of the Roman Empire. What does this mean? Well, he gives the Eastern Roman Empire to Cleopatra and her children. That's what that means. This promiscuous donation of his regime is done from erotic desire. It is a squandering, a wastefulness that is prompted by love. That's the point. So look, the lives of thousands of soldiers are destroyed because of one man's obsession with one woman, namely because of Antony's love obsession with Cleopatra. Their love affair gives rise to the last war of the Roman Republic. Love leads inexorably to misinterpretation and to death. The final war of the Roman Republic would never have taken place were it not for Antony's libidinal obsession with Cleopatra. Emotions impel the action of the play. Love drives forward military action and mass death. Love leads to unspeakable destruction in this play and in history. What precisely is the relationship between love and destruction? That will have to wait to the third and final video of this lecture series. Thank you very much. My name again is Joseph Suglia, Suglia. I am signing out and signing off. Thank you very much.